Jeff Bezos' $600 billion empire was supposed to be untouchable, an empire built on power, precision, and limitless ambition. For years, he seemed unstoppable. The $500 million mega yacht that blocked a historic bridge in Rotterdam, the Billionaire bunker in Florida where privacy is measured in millions, Blue Origin, his private space venture. Reaching for the stars as if Earth itself was no longer enough, Bezos didn't just build businesses. He built a myth, one of dominance, wealth, and control. He was the man who turned a small online bookstore into a global powerhouse. The billionaire who seemed to rewrite the rules of success with every move. But behind the lavish parties, the immaculate PR campaigns, and the carefully staged photos of a man who looked invincible, the cracks were already forming. And soon, the world would see what happens when the myth begins to shatter. It started with a yacht of $500 million floating palace called Kourou, at 417 feet long. It wasn't just a boat, it was a statement. A symbol of wealth so extreme that it literally brought an entire city to a standstill. When news broke that Bezos' yacht couldn't pass under Rotterdam's historic De Hef Bridge, the solution seemed outrageous: dismantle the bridge. For him, to Bezos and his team, it was a simple request, but to the people of Rotterdam, it was an insult. Protesters planned to pelt the yacht with rotten eggs. Social media exploded. What should have been Bezos' triumphant moment at sea turned into a global spectacle of billionaire arrogance. And in the end, Bezos backed down. His prized yacht was quietly towed out under the cover of night. Masks removed, like a retreating king hiding his crown. For the first time, the world saw something Bezos had spent decades avoiding: defeat. And that single moment became more than just bad press. It was the first visible crack in an empire that once looked untouchable. But this was only the beginning, because the fracture lines were about to spread. After the Yacht Scandal, Bezos made his next move, one that only fueled the fire. He left Seattle, the city where Amazon was born, and relocated to Florida's ultra-exclusive Billionaire bunker. On paper, it looked like a lifestyle choice: sunshine, privacy, a $237 million compound hidden away from the world. But the timing told another story. Just as Washington state passed a 7% capital gains tax, Bezos packed his bags and headed straight for a tax-free paradise. Critics didn't hold back. To them, it wasn't just a move, it was an escape. A billionaire ducking responsibility while ordinary taxpayers carried the weight. Activists even targeted his new properties, turning his luxury real estate into symbols of civic abandonment. And it didn't stop there. Every glimpse of Bezos' life, his yachts, his mansions, his lavish wedding plans, fed the narrative that he wasn't just rich, he was out of touch. But while the public was enraged, the real damage was only beginning to take shape. Because what happened next would turn this backlash into something Bezos couldn't buy his way out of. The Florida move was just the spark. What followed was a wildfire of public outrage that began to consume Bezos' image piece by piece. His lavish Venice wedding with Lauren Sanchez, once meant to be a fairy tale, became a lightning rod for criticism. Locals protested as fleets of private jets descended on a city already sinking under the weight of climate change. Too many. It wasn't a wedding, it was a billionaire parade, flaunting wealth in a world growing angrier by the day. Every Instagram photo from his yacht, every glimpse of his sprawling mansions, every story of Amazon's harsh warehouse conditions, each one added fuel to the fire. The narrative was no longer about a self-made genius. It was about a man living in a bubble far removed from the world that made him rich. Even his so-called good deeds failed to repair the damage. His $10 billion Bezos Earth Fund was criticized for its lack of transparency, dismissed as little more than an expensive PR bandage on a deep reputational wound. This wasn't just bad press, it was a transformation. Jeff Bezos had gone from visionary to villain in the public eye, and as his reputation rotted, it began to threaten the very empire he built. But the fallout was about to get even worse, because soon the outrage would move from headlines to boardrooms. Reputational damage isn't just a headline problem, it's a business killer. And for Bezos, the cracks in his public image were now bleeding into Amazon's core. The first blow came quietly. Top engineers and executives, once proud to work under the banner of Amazon, began slipping away. For a new generation of talent, ethics matter. And working for Bezos was no longer a badge of honor, it was a potential stain on a resume. Then came the political siege. Lawmakers, armed with public outrage, finally saw an opening. The Federal Trade Commission launched a landmark antitrust lawsuit against Amazon, accusing it of wielding monopoly power to crush competition. Every story of Bezos' yachts, tax moves, and lavish lifestyle became ammunition for regulators determined to break his grip on the market. And while Bezos once seemed untouchable, Amazon was now staring down real billion-dollar threats, lawsuits, stricter regulations, and a growing wave of unionization efforts threatening to rewrite the company's entire business model. The empire wasn't collapsing all at once. It was eroding one executive, one lawsuit, one angry warehouse worker at a time. But the storm was only getting stronger because what came next would hit Bezos. Where it hurt the most, his control over his own workforce. For years, Bezos treated unionization like a distant threat, loud but never dangerous enough to touch him. That illusion shattered. It started in Staten Island, where workers at an Amazon warehouse pulled off what once seemed impossible. They voted to unionize. Then came British Columbia, where labor boards condemned Amazon's tactics as deliberate, calculated, and pervasive, granting automatic certification to the union. This wasn't just a win for workers, it was a warning shot to Bezos himself. His carefully built fortress of control was starting to show cracks from the inside. The warehouse floor, once silent, had become a battlefield, and every victory fueled the next. Workers who had once feared retaliation were now emboldened, organizing with a new sense of power. Each protest, each legal ruling, each viral video of grueling working conditions didn't just damage Amazon's reputation, it added pressure to the man who had built it all. Bezos could fight governments. He could fight bad press, but a revolt from his own workforce? That was something even he couldn't fully contain. And while Amazon scrambled to put out fires on the ground, another front of his empire was already faltering, this time far above the earth. For Jeff Bezos, space was supposed to be his ultimate escape, a realm untouched by politics, protests, or bad press. Blue Origin wasn't just a company, it was his legacy project. His chance to outshine rivals and etch his name among the stars. But instead of triumph, Blue Origin became a symbol of stalled ambition. While Elon Musk's SpaceX launched rockets, satellites, and astronauts at breakneck speed, Bezos' space venture struggled with delays, missed deadlines, and constant reshuffling of leadership. Insiders whispered about low morale, high turnover, and a lack of clear direction. Reports claimed that engineers were growing frustrated, watching SpaceX dominate headlines while Blue Origin fought to stay relevant. For a man obsessed with control, Bezos was losing the one race he thought he couldn't lose, and the public noticed. What was once seen as visionary now looked like vanity, a billionaire chasing rockets while his empire on Earth began to crack. Worse yet, the setbacks at Blue Origin only fueled the larger narrative that Bezos wasn't invincible anymore. His critics didn't just see a struggling space company, they saw proof that even the richest man alive could fall back to Earth. But as bad as things looked for Bezos, the most devastating blow was still to come the moment his carefully crafted image shattered completely. Jeff Bezos was supposed to be untouchable. For years, his wealth, power, and influence created the illusion of a man who could bend the world to his will. But now, that illusion is gone. The Yacht Scandal, the Florida tax exile, the protests, the lawsuits, the union battles, and Blue Origin's stalled ambitions, each one chipped away at the myth of invincibility until only one thing remained: the image of a billionaire surrounded by the ruins of his own making. What once looked like unstoppable success now feels like a slow, public unraveling. His lavish lifestyle has become a weapon for his critics. His empire, once built on innovation and dominance, is increasingly defined by backlash and rebellion. And for the first time in his career, Bezos is no longer the one rewriting the narrative, he's trapped in it. This isn't just about Amazon. It's about the fall of an empire that was supposed to last forever, and the warning it sends to every titan who believes they're too big to fail. Because if Jeff Bezos can stumble, anyone can. And the world is watching to see just how far he might fall. And this is only the beginning. If Bezos' $600 billion empire can crack this easily, who's next? Is this the start of a new era where even the richest can't escape accountability? Or will Bezos find a way to claw his way back? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story isn't over, and your take might just be in our next video. And if you thought this was wild, wait until you see the shocking truth about the billionaire feud no one's talking about. Subscribe now, because the next twist will leave you speechless.